I'm Stephen Metcalf, and this is the Slate Culture Gabfest Can Spinal Tap Still Go to 11 edition. It's Wednesday, September 17th, 2025. On today's show, Spinal Tap returns 40-some-odd years later with Spinal Tap II, The End Continues. It reunites Derek Smalls, Nigel Tufnell, and David St. Hubbins, and of course, Marty DeBurgi, with cameos by Maka and Elton. And then the Summer of Trash TV culminates with The Girlfriend. It stars Olivia Cooke in the title role and Robin Wright as the would-be mother-in-law she goes to psychological war with. And finally, a true giant has died. Robert Redford, a movie star of unrivaled stature in the 1970s and beyond, a director in the 80s, and of course the very benign, really beneficent Svengali to a generation of indie filmmakers with the Sundance Institute. To discuss all the above, joining me today is Dan Kois, the ex-Slatester. Dan, what happened there?
I quit, man.
Yeah, but did you tell them to take this job and shove it? Did you get a golden handcuff, golden parachute?
No, I told them, thank you for the very nice job that I really enjoyed, but I'm off to different pastures.
Different pastures. One certainly is going to be book writing. You're the author of many books. The most recent, I should say, is Hampton Heights, One Harrowing Night in the Most Haunted Neighborhood in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A novel, of course. And you have a piece in The New Yorker, which we're going to discuss in the Plus, about Samin Nosrat. I look forward to it very much. Thanks for coming on. And of course, Dana Stevens is the film critic for Slate. Hey, Dana.
Hey. Still in the handcuffs. Not golden.
I was trying to go for, I guess, yes, the tin handcuffs and the golden parachute or the lead parachute and anyway, whatever. But thankfully, you're both here to discuss. We have great topics, so let's get going.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
When did making plans get this complicated? It's time to streamline with WhatsApp, the secure messaging app that brings the whole group together. Use polls to settle dinner plans. Send event invites and pin messages so no one forgets Mom's 60th. And never miss a meme or milestone. All protected with end-to-end encryption. It's time for WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone. Learn more at whatsapp.com.
The original Spinal Tap came out in 1984, just as hip-hop was hitting commercially, and the 60s heyday was really in the rearview mirror, especially after punk rock, post-punk, new wave. The art form was rapidly descending into arena pomp and hagiography. It made it more than a little ripe for parody. Enter the actor-comedians Christopher Guest and Michael McKean. Together with Harry Shearer, they created a fictional band, Spinal Tap, and an accompanying mockumentary, if you will. They then went about exploding every cliche in the rock and roll book, meeting as lads, forming a skiffle group, then followed as they descended into kitsch and finally irrelevance, their giant egos battered, but more or less intact, even as they got second billing to a puppet show. The film is rightly preserved by the Library of Congress, but to be honest, it didn't need to be. It's like seared word for word into the consciousness of many people roughly my age and others. I mean, think about it, like Goes to 11, What's the Matter with Sexy, Boston's Not a Big College Town, Stonehenge. It goes on and on and on. I was able to write this intro without the aid of Google. Spinal Tap, c'est moi. Of course, it was Rob Reiner's feature debut. He also played Marty DeBurgi, the fictional documentarian in the film. The best clip we could do was the trailer for the new one. Let's have a listen.
Hi, I'm Marty DeBurgi. 40 years ago, I was honored to direct a film called This is Spinal Tap.
The numbers all go to 11. One louder.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I'd like to sink her with my pink torpedo.
Pink torpedo? That's literature.
Yeah.
Really?
A lot has happened since the last time I saw you.
Okay, Dana, let me start with you. I just very curious what your relationship with the original movie was going into this one, and how did this hold up in relation to that memory?
Yeah, Steve, I talk about this a bit in writing about this new Spinal Tap movie for Slate, which is that you don't have to have been born into the demographic of seeing this movie when it first came out on the big screen to love it and laugh at it and quote from some of those lines we heard in the trailer all these 41 years later. But as it so happens, I was in that demographic, and this movie really hit for me. I think probably when I saw it as a teenager, it was the funniest movie I'd ever seen. And it was that time when you had to see something in pretty much on the big screen again to laugh at it again. So I'm sure I saw it many times. And yeah, I feel like this movie is an important movie in many ways. In addition to just being a beloved comedy classic, it was Rob Reiner's directorial debut, right? Very impressive directorial debut that launched him on this string. It was sort of the Rob Reiner golden age when he made all these great movies in a row. In the 80s and early 90s, but Spinal Tap was the first of them, which is a pretty impressive directorial debut. And it also, this is just a huge influence. It's almost impossible to trace. It sort of started the mockumentary craze, right? Like the mockumentary itself was a very novel format at the time. The way these guys did the mockumentary was particularly inventive because it's basically an improv movie. They're just improvising on set and recording the best takes, which makes you wonder, how did they not crack each other up so many times, right? Like the cutting room floor footage of that movie has to be amazing. But yeah, mockumentary is now everywhere, arguably too much everywhere. It's sort of the go-to format for comedies like The Office or The Paper that we talked about last week on this show. Anyway, all that is about the old Spinal Tap. So yes, I went into this new one as a big nostalgist for the old one, and also just having a tremendous fondness for this band, which I think it's important to remember. The band sort of lives outside of the movies. They've toured the world before. They've, kind of released a concert, not quite a doc, but sort of an extended video of concert footage. There are plenty of people that know Spinal Tap as a band outside of either of these two movies. So all of that said, there's a huge legacy going into this remake. It is not your typical legacy sequel that's sort of seeking a cash grab, in my view. It's much more personal and sort of tender-hearted than that. So the question is, does a personal, tender-hearted version of something as satirical as Spinal Tap work? I'm not totally sure this would convert anyone to the Spinal Tap universe. I think it will make you smile and laugh and actually sing along with some of the new songs if you're already a Spinal Tap fan. But really, I think this movie is sort of about... It's about aging and art and coming to terms with one's life continuing to endure past the point of, when maybe you made that big splash in the first place. So Spinal Tap, when we saw them back in 84, were already supposed to be these aging rockers. Now, of course, they're actually aged rockers in their 70s, or in Harry Shearer's case, their 80s. And I, for one, was very happy to see them again, and did not laugh hysterically at every moment of this movie, but found myself really entranced by how warmly these guys play together, what good musicians they are, and how fun it was to watch them noodle in the studio.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, Dan, I seem to remember Spinal Tap being widely cited as the funniest movie of all time. And I certainly, for stretches of my life, have regarded it as that. What about you? What's your history with this property, and how did that reflect in your viewing of the sequel?
I would not describe it as the funniest movie of all time. I wouldn't even describe it as the funniest Christopher Guest mockumentary of all time. I find the original enormously influential and enormously insightful about rock music at as you say, Steve, a real the cusp of something, the cusp of obsolescence, really, just as the band was in the original movie. But as a movie, I find it like a very charming, often quite funny proto example of a form that Christopher Guest would later utterly perfect in the kind of like perfect 3-movie run of Guffman, Best in Show, and A Mighty Wind. 3 movies that utilize this form even better than Spinal Tap does, and creates more indelible characters, more incredibly funny scenes, and even as the the subjects that they are approaching are much more marginal to the culture, and I think as a result create funnier characters and movies and moments. That said, I also have an enormous amount of affection for Spinal Tap. It's impossible to be a 50-year-old white man in America and not. And I liked the idea of this legacy sequel in a way that that often I don't, because like Dana, I also viewed it. It's not exactly a cash grab. How much cash really is there to be made in a movie theater these days anyway? And because it presented a real opportunity to be satirizing a different thing. Like in 1984, it was satirizing the overblown pompousness of heavy metal and of rock in a world in which rock was people were just starting to understand how ridiculous that was. And now you have the opportunity to satirize the legacy tour, the truly elderly band still carrying on, playing the hits for for old fans and new, long past the point at which it had any cultural relevance at all. And there are like a lot of funny things about that I hoped the movie would have something to say about. And it does have some things to say about, and often those bits are quite good. But I have a question for you too. And it has to do with this relationship that Dana mentioned about, the band exists in the world separate from the movies. And theoretically, there are people who just know the band, who just know the song Big Bottom and don't know that it comes from a joke movie. That seems difficult for me to imagine, but it's definitely possible. Do you guys think it kills the joke or extends the joke to have Paul McCartney and Elton John claiming to non-ironically love Spinal Tap?
I guess I would frame my answer this way. First of all, my own estimation, Spinal Tap is among the funniest movies ever made, but it has a very specific phenomenon. So a friend of mine went to go see it before I saw it back in '84, saw it in the movie theater, and he has one of these, sort of steel trap, highly specific memories. And he virtually performed beat for beat the entire film for me after he saw it. Like all of the iconic scenes I knew before I'd ever seen the movie. And perhaps because of that, I went in and I found the movie somewhat oddly disappointing. But of course, the genius of Spinal Tap is in its ad infinitum, but never quite ad nauseum repetition of its iconic scenes. And over time, as I began repeating all of these scenes, word for word to other friends of mine who had seen it, and essentially we performed them for one another over a period of 30 or 40 years, it just got funnier and funnier and funnier and somehow more apt, maybe because rock just entered a period of utter senescence very quickly, and super high self-regard after 1984. And now I catch bits and pieces of the movie every now and then, or even rewatch it, and it has me completely, doubled over in laughter. But so I just thought the first one was beat for beat, utterly brilliant, very funny, and as we've discussed, like completely apt to the moment in rock history. This one is it's funny because I think, Dan, you ask exactly the right question. It's sort of it's wistfulness and sincerity in regards to aging and being known for a thing that you did, right? That's the kind of poignancy of it, of being most known for a thing you did 40 or 50 years ago. And so it's this interesting contrast between being locked into a public identity that's really appropriate to a young, virile male, for better and for worse, even as you enter your 60s, 70s, and 80s, and then the contrast with who you really are in your day-to-day life. That's a pretty good ripe for satire. So one runs a cheese shop, and one is has started a glue museum. And all of that's sort of moderately funny, but there was something genuinely sharp and a little vicious about the satire in 1984, and wistful nostalgia does seem to blunt it a little bit. Yeah. But then I found myself coming out on the far end of that, which is that these guys don't have the synaptic genius that they had when they were in their prime as comedians. And it was, Dana, as you say, like an almost entirely improv movie. They just don't have those improv reflexes anymore. And there are so many promising moments that kind of dud out very quickly in this comedically, so that the only thing that really works is the wistfulness. And the wistfulness kind of really worked for me at the end. And the moment it really works is when Elton John enters the rehearsal space. And I have to really believe that they were filming the moment that Elton John IRL like walked into the rehearsal space. I suspect they knew he was attached to the movie and was going to do this. And then they play a song together. And I sincerely believe that Elton John loves these songs. He finds them incredibly funny and captivating. He did always dream of playing with Spinal Tap. And so he is really into it. He's, of course, a virtuosic musician. He's able to sit down with like one little mimeograph sheet of paper in front of him and play Stonehenge and listen to the Flower People note for note perfectly. He sings them really, really well. But the looks on the faces of those actors, and in that moment, like Nigel Tufnell and Christopher Guest and Michael McKean and David St. Hubbins kind of become one in a way. And they're just glowing with these smiles that someone as titanic in the business of making iconic pop music finds their music genuinely iconic and captivating and wants to play it. And I thought that that was a magical moment. And then there's another, moment, Dana, where they really drive it home, where the conflicts between the two the Lennon and McCartney figures, as it were, in the band are once again coming to a head. And Michael McKean, David St. Hubbins takes this walk in New Orleans, right, which is the cradle of American popular music because of Louis Armstrong and jazz, and then, of course, the blues. And he comes across these blues musicians, and it's like just one of those moments that could curdle so easily. Actually really worked for me in a weird way, What about you?
Yeah, that moment is really beautiful. I felt sad that the story between them, though, this movie doesn't have a strongly developed enough story. That's its biggest problem, I think. I think that even the improv could have been stronger if there had been some sort of skeletal script that foregrounded that conflict between the Lennon and McCartney of Spinal Tap, right? They're not supposed to have played together or spoken in 15 years for reasons that we don't learn until the very end of the movie. Then, because of that nostalgic walk that Michael McKean's character takes, it gets quickly resolved. And I felt like they needed to sort of foreground some conflict. But because this is so warm and nostalgic, and we do live in a universe now in Spinal Tap verse where, for some reason, they've become big stars. They've gone from, closing for a children's puppet show to McCartney and Elton John want to perform with them. So we don't know exactly how that's happened in the intervening years, but although it's a funny conceit that suddenly Spinal Tap is, beloved by the world's most eminent musicians, it also kind of takes all the conflict out of the movie. So that's why I would say that the strongest moments in this movie are the moments where they're just rehearsing in studio, whether it's with these stars sitting in or just them sort of figuring out, arguing about which chord to play. I wrote this too on Slate. It makes me think of Get Back, the great Peter Jackson sprawling documentary about the Beatles rehearsal sessions, which to me, the biggest revelation of that documentary was, wow, even musicians at this level spend so much time just fucking around, just noodling and arguing and not even knowing what song they're all playing or in what key. And because these guys really are the actual musicians who are playing the instruments and wrote the songs, I got a similar sense of kind of musical craftsmanship and companionship and camaraderie in those scenes that was good enough to carry me along as a fan. Like, I'm not going to send somebody to this in order to discover the band, but I would say that if you have any good feelings about the old Spinal Tap, and who doesn't, you probably won't regret seeing this. There's 2 new good songs, for God's sake. Go just to learn the 2 good songs.
I mean, come on. It's Spinal Tap. Go check it out. It's they cut some deal with Alamo movie chain in order to line their pockets a little bit. I say check it out.
Dana, I would say, if what you wish you could see was the footage from the cutting room floor of the original Spinal Tap, I've got great news for you. The new Criterion disc of the original Spinal Tap includes like 94 minutes of cutting room footage.
Oh, now that is a good extra.
It's like having a whole nother Spinal Tap movie.
Oh my God, yes. All right, check it out. Let's move on.
Stonehenge, where the demons dwell, where the fight to live and the do live well. Stonehenge, where a man's a man and the children dance to the pipes of pan.
All right. Well, as of the date of the release of this podcast, we're in mid-September, which means fall is in full swing. So it's the perfect time to refresh your wardrobe with some autumn pieces. And luckily, guess who makes it easy to do, Stephen? It's Quince, your favorite.
It's Quince.
Your favorite ordering site for all of your wardrobe basics. I happen to be wearing a Quince shirt right now. I never intend to have one on while we're taping, but since I have quite a few pieces from them, I happen to have one today. I don't know if you can see it over the Zoom that we're recording on, Steve. Do you see my peasant blouse?
Oh, look at that.
It's called the Organic Textured Cotton Peasant Blouse. And it's something that I've been wearing throughout the summer, but since it's long-sleeved, it works for the fall as well.
It's just perfect for you because you're an organic textured peasant. So it's just... Sorry.
Yeah, that's actually a little bit all too true. Can you talk about something that you've been loving from Quince?
I'm now deep in their sock collection. So far, I've loved everything they've ever sent me. So if it's on their site, I'm liable to order it.
All right. Well, if you too, like Steve and I, want to keep it classic and cozy this fall, go to quince.com/culture for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/culture to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/culture.
All right. Now is the moment in our podcast where we typically discuss business. Dana, what do we have?
It is, Steve. Our only piece of business this week is to tell Slate Plus subscribers about our bonus episode. We're going to be talking about Samin Nosrat, the cookbook author, TV food personality. Dan Kois, who's our third host this week, just interviewed Samin Nosrat, met with her in her home in Oakland and wrote about her for The New Yorker. So we're going to talk to him about that experience. This was going to be our third topic this week, but when we heard the sad news that Robert Redford had passed, we did a last-minute switch. So you've got to get behind that paywall to hear about Samin Nosrat and Dan Kois's meeting. You'll see that as a separate episode in your feed if you're a Slate Plus subscriber. And if you're not, please consider becoming one. You get a lot of benefits when you're a member, including ad-free versions of all our podcasts, bonus episodes of many podcasts, including this one, and of course, the chance to read and to listen to as much as you want to on Slate.com. If you sign up that way, you also give us, the Culture Gabfest, a little boost as the people who wooed you over to the good side. So once again, that's slate.com/culture plus. All right, back to the show.
All right. Well, The Girlfriend is a limited series on Amazon Prime. It's being grouped by many critics with Sirens and Hunting Wives as escapist trash that everyone watched over this past summer. It stars Olivia Cooke as a young working-class Londoner who meets the man of her dreams. He's 27, a trauma surgeon to be, and he's from an ultra-rich London family whose matriarch, played by Wright, is an art wheeler and dealer named Laura. Laura is perfectly turned out, beautiful, elegant, and more than a little obsessed with her son. It makes for a commanding future mother-in-law, to put it mildly. What follows is a Rashomon-like psychological thriller in which we see episodes from each of the would-be in-laws' perspective. Is Cherry a scheming gold digger with a sinister backstory, or is Laura a smothering maternal neurotic who refuses to let go of her only son? The show also stars Laurie Davidson as the man they're fighting over. In the clip, we hear the young couple discussing the boyfriend's mother, Laura, for the first time. Let's listen.
What about your mum? Is she a lady of leisure?
No. God, no. She runs through galleries. Works constantly. She's a machine.
You're a mummy's boy, aren't you?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. She's got me wrapped around a little finger. What about you?
I was daddy's girl, probably.
Was?
He died when I was 14.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay, it's motivated me. I'm under no illusions, you've got to really put in the graft. Nobody's going to do it for you. Unless, maybe, if your dad owns lots of fancy hotels.
Okay, Dan, let me start with you. Trashy, kind of fun, bingeable, question mark. What'd you make of this? Did you stick with it very long?
Here are the things that I liked. I liked the playing with POV, as you say. It's not Rashomon exactly, but it is taking a crack at the sort of Gone Girl mode in which we are seeing the story from people's different perspectives, and there are minor inconsistencies between those POVs that make us understand that both of them are sort of unreliable narrators in this visual format, which is a tricky thing to do and is often quite interesting. I really like the artwork in Laura's gallery, even though it got bad reviews from all the big art magazines, but they're enormous, heroic portraits of guys with big dicks. I thought that was excellent work. I liked the music choices in this show, which are all comically on the nose, but they're all great songs.
I'm about to kill my son's girlfriend.
That's right.
True.
Like when they're playing To Bring You My Love during that gallery show, and PJ Harvey is wailing away while Robin Wright stares daggers at the girl who's taking away her son. I didn't really like anything else. I bailed after 2 episodes, in part because I felt like this is a show that like wants to be trash, but also has this idea that it is in some way sophisticated. And because it's sophisticated, I felt like it's quote unquote sophisticated. It was like allergic to making truly surprising choices. Like I felt like I could see each beat coming a mile away. It's not giving me what I want out of the trash. And instead it's giving me this quasi sophisticated rich person view of a trashy poor person that in the end, I did not find that compelling. In the end, I enjoyed reading the plot synopsis blog posts that I found on peoplemagazine.com more than I think I would have enjoyed actually watching the final 4 episodes. But obviously, I am in the minority. People are like devouring this show. And how far did you guys get? Dana, how far did you get? And then how did you feel about yourself?
Yes, those are both important and related questions. I watched the entire thing. That was in part because it's only 6 hours long. It's not that often that I can finish a show that we're watching in order to talk about it, because they're usually at least, 10 hours of watching. This was just under 6 hours. Once I had gotten through 4 episodes, which seemed like how many you needed to sort of get how the point of view thing was working, it was a little bit like that line in Macbeth, where he says, like, I've killed so many people, I might as well wade through the sea of blood to the other side. Right? Like, I was not enjoying the show. Similarly to you, Dan, I tried to let myself be carried away. We all know last week was a very shitty week. I would have loved nothing more this weekend than, to be carried away on a wave of entertaining trash. But I found this show dragged and felt very long because it was making the same few simple points about perspectival differences between these two characters over and over. And I really just watched it through to the end because I wanted to see how they would land all of the incredibly implausible plot twists that had been put in place, which it can be satisfying, right? To watch absolutely absurdly implausible plot twists somehow be brought together in the end. And I don't
to see them pay off their bad decisions.
Yeah. And I don't think the last episode did that. And I think reading a bit about the show, I think it's somewhat cynical that it didn't, because I think they're angling for the possibility of a second season. So there's some questions left unanswered in order to maybe possibly get renewed. I envy the people that had fun watching this. I would say my favorite thing about it, honestly, was the clothes and especially the nightwear. Somebody wrote somewhere that this is actually about lingerie. And I think that's a fairly well-made argument, because it really is sort of a fashion show for both Robin Wright and Olivia Cooke to go around wearing slinky negligees.
Yeah, and their nightwear reveals character maybe more than the dialogue does.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, this show is terrible. I mean, it's so perfectly suited to a moment of the LLM, and the kind of autocomplete, technology that very well could have written every scene in this TV show. It's just verging on preposterously bad. But as with Hunting Wives, I watched every minute of it and wished it had been longer. And so to me, the mystery isn't the goodness or relative goodness or badness of this. Its badness is kind of, established and absolute in and of itself, unimpeachably evident to all watchers, all comers. It's empirical. The positivists would agree. Taste in this one instance is not subjective. This thing sucks. But the real question is, why now? Like, why at this moment do shows like this seem to be getting traction? And one explanation is there's more of them because people aren't really throwing enough money at the wall to see what sticks and see which one ends up being Breaking Bad or, fill in the blank, I don't know, whatever, super prestige television shows. That moment seems to have sort of passed. And so people are making do, but there's also there's something about escapism, and there's something undemanding about, we all have ranges of friends, and some you just feel like, I have to be on my A game. It's an honor to know this person. This is fucking exhausting. And other people, you're like, man, I do not need to bring my A game to this relationship. and like the two of us like fucking dig hanging out and just being our idiotic selves with each other. That's how I felt with the show. I really needed it at this moment. I will say one slightly more substantive thing about the show, though, which is that, do you agree, Dana, at its heart is potentially a really interesting show, which is about generational difference, a generational difference as a class difference, which is a very salient topic, right? There is this kind of ontological gap between the old and the young, the baby boomers who, as a cohort, were born at literally the best time in human history to be randomly born into a family and a social class, right? Just that is an empirical fact, right? Your chances at upward mobility, wealth production via owning real estate, the degree to which the social safety net in America was relatively intact, or relatively robust. These were all historical anomalies that affected people born roughly around when Laura, the character, Robin Wright character, was born. And if nothing else, this character takes her enormous privilege pretty much for granted. And she sees this young woman through the lens of that privilege. So you could have had a show about how, of course, to someone who's in, let's say, her 60s, or I don't know how old Robin Wright is, but let's assert she's boomer, roughly boomer age, would see any younger person as desperate, as scheming. This person is clearly depicted, like vividly depicted, as a working class character, as someone who has to more than just fucking sing for her supper. She might have to scheme for it, kind of a Becky Sharp like figure, which is endemic to that generation, right? Who's been, the social safety net is totally tattered. Every single public event that landmarks their life has been one of loss and disaster, beginning with 9/11 or before that, and certainly up through these years, and which don't need enumerating, and who feel locked out of the social contract, in effect. And so, of course, she would be that way. And so I thought that's a fascinating character study, and it sort of flirts with that interesting show a little bit. But I'm curious whether you responded to that aspect of it all. And then I think, without spoiling it, we have to allude to the incredibly reductive and cop-out way that they ended the whole show. Anyway, I throw that all in your lap, but...
All right. Well, I think I got to leave the ending just for people to watch it, because really, like I said, the only reason I stuck with it was just to see how they were going to bring the story together. In relation to Becky Sharp, I just feel the need to observe that Olivia Cooke has played Becky Sharp in a 2018 British miniseries of Vanity Fair. Yeah, the scheming anti-heroine of Vanity Fair. It's not the greatest miniseries. It's just not worthy at all of that incredible book. But she does make a good Becky Sharp, and there's some reasons to watch that show. This movie could have been much more precise about its social satire. I don't see rich people as we know them now in 2025 in this show. Exactly. It's more of an idea of the wealthy and the envy that the working class would have of the wealthy than a specific portrait of what it means to be rich right now. And the main character that adheres in is the husband, the very rich hotel owning husband. He's played by an actor named Walid Zuwaiter, who I thought was great. He's maybe the only likable character in the show, but that's the problem. Like, how could this gajillionaire owner of an entire hotel chain be as sort of decent of a dad and warm-hearted of a person as this dad seems to be? There's just there's some blinders on with this show where we're supposed to dislike the wealthy a certain amount because we resent them, but there's not really a sense of what it would actually be to live at that level of wealth, so much so that I was trying to figure out, are they shooting to show that they're sort of wealthy but not ultra wealthy? Like, even the apartment that the 27-year-old son is going to buy, right? Sure, a 27-year-old buying an apartment in London is going to be a wealthy kid, but that is treated as sort of a normal real estate transaction, right? Where he's like pricing apartments and trying to find a good deal. And it's not the way the hyper wealthy would actually work, where they would have agents going out and finding things for you. And I don't know, it seemed, their lives seemed almost too normal. Like, oh, they're sitting around at home having dinner and there aren't servants serving them. I just couldn't figure out how wealthy they were supposed to be. And maybe
they say at one point that he has $1 billion real estate empire.
I thought the blinders on the show with regards to class were like downright maddening to me. And it wasn't just about that. It was like a little bit fuzzy about how rich they were, about how we're meant to view the family's wealth. It's that the idea that in the year 2025, you would make a show that would take this Becky Sharp Stryver character and make her like actually actively psychotic is crazy, like slightly crazy to me, like, and funny in a way too, because I sort of like the idea that you would make a show about an unsympathetic gold digger in 2025, the age of the gold digger. I think the New York Times just declared it the age of the gold digger. And beyond that, I actually can't believe that Lauren Sanchez let them put this show on Amazon Prime with its truly unsympathetic view of a gold digging young woman. But the ideal version of the show, I think, the version that you, Steve, are pointing to, one that was really sharp on issues of class, would have the guts to either be a lot more sympathetic to this working class Stryver character, or would make both of them total psychos. Would make us understand that that wealth has deranged Robin Wright's character to a similar extent that whatever it is that has deranged Olivia Wilde's character has deranged her.
All right. Well, I don't think, no critic in their right mind would send, a potential watcher of this show to it with the idea that it's any good. But it did oddly resonate in my household. And it sounds like, Dana, there was some addictive quality to it that made you stick with it beyond just the sunk cost. For some reason, this particular moment, I think, has found a lot of viewers vulnerable. It's just good, bad TV. And maybe now is a moment like to escape, your blue sky feed.
Counter argument. It's bad, good TV.
I'm trying to decide whether it's even bad, good TV. I think it's just plain old
it's just
bad TV.
But you watch all 6 hours.
Yeah, you're right. No, but I feel like my calculation, though, was not like I can't resist. It was more like, all right, I have to be able to clearly state my point on the podcast that this show didn't work. And because it was so twist-based.
I just think it's right that Americans are uniquely vulnerable to this right now. And it's very canny of these streamers to be making trash that makes us both wish things were better for ourselves, envy those who have it better, but also find reasons to hate them in the end. That doesn't speak well for the position we're all in our heads are in at this moment.
I mean, it's also creators and audiences leaning into the idea that for whatever reason and to whatever effect, like excellence and virtue are right not having a moment.
Yeah.
Right. So like nobly persisting and having heroes who personify those qualities, I think would fall flat. It would be either just too painful to contemplate it because no such public figures exist right now. None with any, authority exist right now. Or they just make us feel like shit about ourselves for the fact that we're not,
nobly persisting. We're watching shows like this on Amazon Prime.
Anyway, The Girlfriend, it's on Amazon Prime. Give it a shot. Everyone can use a little help to shape the direction of their lives, from fitness routines to mental resilience or navigating personal goals to tackling burnout. That's what the Life Kit podcast from NPR is here to do. If you're looking to move with more intention or just need thoughtful guidance on living better, Life Kit delivers strategies to help you make meaningful, sustainable change. Life Kit offers real stories, relevant insights, and clear takeaways to help you meet those large and small decision-making moments with confidence and clarity. Trusted voices and expert advice can help take you to the next step, however big or small. Listen to Life Kit to hear thoughtful conversations that unpack the emotional and practical side of personal wellness, along with actionable guidance you can actually use. No fluff, no judgment. Get help tackling common issues like relationships, finances, parenting, and your career. Then walk away with a game plan you can implement right away. Life Kit isn't just another podcast about self-improvement. It's about understanding how to live a little better, starting now. Listen now to the Life Kit podcast from NPR.
This episode is brought to you by Saks Fifth Avenue. Saks Fifth Avenue makes it easy to get creative with your personal style and find the best arrivals for fall. So I went to Saks.com for an accessory that I'm always in the mood to shop for, sunglasses. I love stylish sunglasses, particularly the classic kind of Jackie O-shaped, the big, like slightly oval, dark glasses. And it's a little luxury that, I can afford even when I'm trying not to shop. So I looked at some of the sunglasses on offer at Saks, and they've got all kinds of shapes, not only my favorite Jackie O's, but all kinds of fun cat eye shapes and different designer sunglasses. And just looking at them has been an inspiration for what sunglasses to pair with what outfits. But that's just my experience with Saks.com. There's so much more to explore based on your personal style and what you're looking for. So this fall, whether you're trying out the latest fashion trends or curating a closet that stands the test of time, Saks has you covered. If you want shopping to be fun and easy, then head to Saks Fifth Avenue for inspiring ways to elevate your personal style every day.
We occasionally on the show face a dilemma that's bound up in our production schedule, which is if big news breaks in the world of culture, pop culture, right on like Monday night, or we record on Tuesday mornings, Monday night or Tuesday morning. Do we pivot? Do we go with it? This one, I think, was hardly a question at all. We woke up to the news that Robert Redford was gone, that he died. And with virtually no hesitation, we pivoted at the last second and knew we had to discuss him. I think it's untenable to argue anyone is the last movie star. It makes no sense, really. But Robert Redford brought with him the golden age afterglow into a very, very equivocal decade in American life. The 1970s were associated for that reason, I think, with the nebbish movie star Dustin Hoffman, Elliot Gould, and Donald Sutherland were very, very untraditional types to be male leading men, but they were to great effect. These were weird men for weird times, arguably. But Redford among them was a real throwback. He was handsome. He was like craggily handsome. He almost looked like, a sunlit rock face in an Ansel Adams photograph. And he was golden like a retriever. A golden retriever is golden. He also sort of glowed with this orangey, sunlight like nimbus from that hair. He was also interior and thoughtful, but he was not broken or dark. And then one after the other in the 1970s, I mean, obviously starting in the late 60s, but really in the 70s, iconic performance after iconic performance as Sundance, obviously, and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, that's the late 60s. The Sting, which people forget, The Sting was adjusted for inflation, to this day adjusted for inflation, actually. The Sting is one of the 20 highest grossing movies of all time. It was the biggest movie of the year by far, and maybe commercially among the biggest movies. This is pre-Jaws, right? So before the blockbuster model had really obliterated all such movies, The Sting really hung on as a commercial giant. All the President's Men, where he plays Bob Woodward, host of other movies. Then, of course, in 1981, he wins Best Picture and Director for his movie, The Ordinary People. And soon after that, of course, he creates one of the great film institutions going. This is Sundance. I think we'll get to it. We have, obviously I wrote this on the fly. My admiration for this human being is boundless as a human being as well. He's a creature, it seems to me, of the liberal democratic heyday, both a liberal in the narrower sense of his politics were, to the left, but in a larger, far more capacious sense. He was an institution builder. He was a product of the studio system, which was still viable when he started. He was a person who seemed in his person to constantly be asking, what kind of a world do I most want to live in? And how do I act as though that world exists somewhat in me and maybe as a deposit or down payment on it realizing itself more fully in the future? The answer to that wasn't one in which I am richer or a bigger star. And I would ask you to pause and seriously think about how many of the major movie stars since the heyday of Redford wouldn't, as a first answer, say one in which I'm richer or a bigger star. I'll just leave it there for now. I went on for a long time. Dana, I'll just say quickly, because I was in fourth grade when The Sting came out. It completely remade my sense of like what a movie star was, what going to the movies was. I fell in love with that film totally, and Redford and Newman as a consequence. I'd love to hear your history with Redford, both as a film actor and as a man who built a film festival that you've gone to many times, has sort of been an organizing principle of all our experience of American film since its heyday in the 80s. Start wherever you want. I'm eager to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, we had so little time to prep this that I don't even quite know where to start. What we usually do when someone of this magnitude in film dies is that we'll each watch a different movie of theirs and come and talk about that. And I'm hoping that we will each talk about some different favorites later down the line. But just in response to what you were saying, Steve, I was just thinking about the fact that, I mean, in a way, he didn't come out of the studio system, right? He came along just at the moment that it was dying. And I think of him as more identified with New Hollywood in a way, and somebody who always, certainly later on when he created Sundance and, tried to create this alternative indie Hollywood in Utah, he did this. But even from his earliest days as a film star and a stage star earlier than that, which I want to talk about a bit, he was a maverick always, somebody who was not quite comfortable with the institutional system. Even Sundance itself, when it got too big, he started to, in interviews, he would sort of distance himself from it a bit. Like he didn't want to be part of an establishment. That's why from very early on, he settled in Utah, and raised his family there and, didn't just retire there, but actually made his career there while acting. And so I was thinking about that, about his outsider, that he liked to play outsiders, right? He liked to play sort of political outsiders as he did in, I don't know, the Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid for sure, but also All the President's Men and 3 Days of the Condor, those classic 70s roles. He would always be a guy who's outside the system, trying to investigate, trying to uncover some kind of corruption. Or in The Candidate, right, is sort of the opposite, a political satire where he plays somebody who is very much captured by that system. And it's sort of a tragedy as you watch this candidate lose his soul to the system. And then I started remembering that in Mark Harris's wonderful biography of Mike Nichols, which I kind of use as like almost a reference book for this period in Broadway history and film history, there's some great stories about Robert Redford's first big stage role, which was Barefoot in the Park, directed by Mike Nichols. And it wasn't his Broadway debut, I don't think, but it was certainly his big breakthrough that, after which he quickly became a movie star. And there's an interview with the woman who played opposite him, right? Barefoot in the Park is a romantic comedy. He plays the husband, she plays the wife. Elizabeth Ashley was the actress's name. I'm just going to read a quote from her in the Mike Nichols biography about Redford. She says, "There was always this thing about Redford that he didn't really want to be an actor. He wanted to be a painter. My friends were rag-ass, dope-smoking Greenwich Village types. Bob was a little finer. He was an artist, and we were showbiz trash. There was a sense that he was acting to pay the rent." So, of course, that makes him sound like somebody who's sort of snobbish and standoffish and didn't want to act, but it seems like that tension sort of drove him his whole career, right? He didn't want to just be the handsome golden boy on stage. He didn't want to just be the movie star on film. He wanted to find some other space and create it. And played characters that played into that. At the same time, he had this very enduring career of being, a leonine-maned, blonde, beautiful man on screen. So it seems like that tension must have existed within him for his whole career.
I think it's really fruitful to think about the relationship between New Hollywood of the 70s and the studio system that preceded it with regards to Redford's career. Because you're right, Dana, that Redford wasn't a product of that studio system, but I think he kind of personified it because of his beauty and because of his movie star appeal that seemed like it could have come out of that age. I felt like in the 70s, he connected New Hollywood to old Hollywood. As you say, he had a maverick sensibility, but he had, the smile of a studio system star. And to me, through all those movies in the 70s, where he was willing to work with auteurs and excited about working with auteurs, when he was willing to do movies that explored countercultural themes or that rejected in some way the kinds of stories that old Hollywood told, he still suggested the way that these new kinds of movies could recreate and reconsider the magic and sparkle of the studio system comedy or drama, because they had this beautiful figure in the middle of them who was willing to embrace the kinds of things that the cinema of the 70s was embracing and exploring. And so putting him next to Dustin Hoffman, for, as an example, is a way of saying, oh, these two things can coexist in this new kind of movie, and it can create an entirely new thing, an entirely new kind of cinematic magic that's just as potent and powerful as the movies you loved in 1958 or whatever. But which is interrogating society and art in a new and fascinating kind of way. And I love that about him. I love that he was willing to lend his glow, as you say, Steve, to this new kind of cinema.
Yeah, and that's beautifully, beautifully put, right? Like exactly that. He brought the aura of the old movie star into this new movement of independent production and nebbishy male stars. And that's why President's Men just works as a movie on so many levels. But there's that Lennon and McCartney, tension at the heart of it between two very different kinds of film actors just working hand in glove, and the difference between them making the sum so much greater. The whole so much greater than the sum of its part. I mean, just a great, utterly compelling film, even though we know, almost beat for beat what the story is. It just bears rewatch. That's a movie I could rewatch every single year. One thing, and also Dana, you just so perfectly stated exactly what I think, not only about Redford, but about Bogart, Newman, all the actors screen actors who really have meant a lot to me share this in common. None of them really wanted to be an actor. And I think that that's utterly key to an actor who almost as much as the method. One wouldn't say more than the method. That would be overstating it. But the sense that this person exists as a human being beyond their inhabiting of a star image or persona, and that person has deep reservations about having a public persona to begin with, is just someone who really feels that they can't hide that when they're on screen in some sense. Mark Harris has another wonderful line about how he was just he inhabited his stardom very naturally, but also shyly in a funny way. You never don't think Robert Redford is thinking, no matter how little he says. You don't think he's thinking deep thoughts, and you don't think he's not gnarled up inside the way Bogart was. And Bogart, who was really a fucking tormented man, his interiority is so unique for not being dark or tormented. But and it's that astonishing centeredness that isn't the self-centeredness that made Redford, for me, just such a utterly compelling film actor. Dan, you had suggested a movie, a very late performance, in some ways maybe the last real performance of Redford's career. Talk a little bit about that and maybe set up a clip.
Yeah, when I was thinking about Redford when I heard the news this morning, I thought of all the great movies of the 70s, but the one that actually leapt most clearly to my mind was the most recent Redford movie I saw, which was the last movie he shot. He made appearances in Avengers movies that were shot earlier afterwards, but the last movie he shot was this movie he made with David Lowery called The Old Man and the Gun, which came out in 2018. And he plays kind of like not a Sundance type, but like a Butch Cassidy type, actually, 40 or 50 years later. He's a serial bank robber and prison escaper. He's kind of a charming bullshit artist. And he's very debonair and confident, and he's got a twinkle in his eye. And the movie starts with this beautiful, almost 10-minute conversation between him and Sissy Spacek's character that is flirty and playful. It also really beautifully delineates the difference between their two characters. And at one point he tells her, her character loves horses. She owns a horse farm. And he says, "Oh, I've never ridden a horse," which is an objectively hilarious thing.
Yes.
For the son, for Jeremiah Johnson to say. "Oh, but he's always wanted to," he says. "It's on his list." And she goes, "What list?" And maybe I'll just let the clip go from here.
What are their names?
The horses?
Yeah.
Wiley, Clementine, and Dorothy Jane.
Dorothy Jean. Sounds like my kind of gal. Dorothy Jean.
Do you ride?
Me? No, never have. But it's on my list.
What list is that?
Things I want to do but haven't done yet.
Well, you better hurry up.
Yeah, how come?
Yeah, how come? And she laughs, and he's sort of joking, but also you can tell that character has never really believed he's ever going to die. He's never really believed his light's going to go out. And Redford, I don't think Redford was under any misconceptions about his own mortality. He, in part because I think he picked the right final movie. He said when he was making this movie, this is my last movie, and he picked the right one. Because I think one of the things that made him a great movie star, as you say, Steve, was that like nimbus, that glow around him, his eternal boyhood, his immortal smile. And it limited him in some ways. It limited the kinds of roles he picked, in part because of that sunny interiority, which made him not particularly suited to any truly dark role. But it also meant that every role he played forever, his entire life, it always harkened back in true movie star fashion to what we had always loved about him so much. And so in this character in 2018, we can see every character he ever played. And the movie is such a delight, and his performance is so good, especially in those Sissy Spacek scenes, not only for what it is, but for all that it represents. And the movie, in fact, tips its hand to that. It tips its hat to his career, and in fact includes a clip from an older sun-drenched Robert Redford film from I think the late 60s. And it's really quite beautiful. And if you haven't watched it, I really suggest everyone should.
Yeah, and this part of him we keep alluding to that somehow, didn't like to be on display, didn't like to, or at least didn't value above all else being, the good-looking movie star in front of the camera, meant that pretty early on he started moving behind the camera. Ordinary People, which is a pretty impressive directorial debut, it won 4 Oscars, including Best Director for Redford, was made in 1980. When I saw that date, reading about him, I was just sort of startled how early it was, how close it was to, Butch Cassidy and those big mid-70s movies in which he was the golden boy. Suddenly he disappears entirely behind the camera and makes a very inward family drama, a pretty damn dark movie, and it's a huge hit, a huge success. And so suddenly he's a viable director after just one movie. And I mean, the history of actors, big actors, going on to become directors is rarely as seamless and successful. The ability to sort of move back and forth between the two, as Redford made it. And he made a lot of good movies. I mean, Ordinary People may be the best movie that he directed, his very first. But I mean, personally, I'm a huge fan of Quiz Show, a movie he made much later in 1994. And, River Runs Through It. Like, he had a certain type of film he was drawn to that was sort of a novelistic, serious character study with some element of maybe, of a broader social vision in it that's vaguely progressive, I guess I would say.
His goals for his career and his life seemed to be to try and make things that maybe refracted his glow and his stardom out into the world, but weren't about making him bigger. They were about making the art form bigger and giving other people opportunities to shine, to launch out into the world, which I think is really nice.
Well, I think that's a lovely place to round off this conversation.
Should we each say a movie that we would send people to for their own Redford memorial?
Right now, out in Los Angeles, Julia Turner is fuming, incandescent with rage that she cannot come on the show and tell everyone to watch Sneakers.
Oh, yes, of course.
We would have talked about nothing but sneakers for the last 10 minutes if Julia were here. But that is a great, I mean, in the tragic situation that anyone listening to this has not seen Sneakers, that should definitely be what they queue up tonight.
Right. And I'll just steal from you, Dan. I would also say, if you haven't seen Quiz Show, it's a movie that did make a decent amount of noise at the time, but I bet it holds up. I haven't seen it in a while, but a terrific movie that maybe was underwatched. All right. Well, Robert Redford, you will be dearly, dearly, dearly missed. But what you built I really don't mean to sound sentimental, but I do think it's going to go on forever. Sundance is not going anywhere. All right, let's move on.
You know what doesn't belong in epic summer plans? Getting burned by your old wireless bill. You should be planning beach trips and barbecues, and your wireless bill should not be holding you back. That's why you should switch to Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile was not my provider before, but they were kind enough to give me a few months of a trial run so I could test out their service, and I have to say, I may stick with them. Mint Mobile is very well priced for the service they offer, and I've had a really good experience with them so far. So, like Ryan Reynolds, I may be sticking with them for good. All their plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. This year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get this new customer offer and your 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/culture. That's mintmobile.com/culture. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 per month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 GB on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality walking shoes, which might lead to another discovery.
40,000 steps, baby. Who's on top now, Karen?
You've taken the office step challenge a step too far. Don't worry, though. Sierra also has yoga gear. It might be a good place to find your zen. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
All right, now is the moment in our podcast when we endorse Dana. Let me start with you. What do you have this week?
I mean, this may be a little bit on the lines of, the classic Cheers endorsement, like who doesn't already know and love this thing? But it came up this week for me because this was what my much classier than me husband was watching as I was getting through 6 hours of The Girlfriend. It was one of those nights that I think every culture critic is familiar with, where you have to watch a thing and they get to watch a thing. And there couldn't have been a greater contrast between these two things. So it was just making me laugh as I was coming upstairs to the kitchen to get sustenance for my next very long feeling episode. And he was watching My Dinner with Andre, the 1981 Louis Malle comedy about two guys having dinner. And I was so jealous. I would come up and hear just a little fragment of the conversation, just some crazy little, story told by Andre Gregory or some wonderful reaction line from Wallace Shawn or just a description of the food they were eating. And I've seen that movie so many times. I guess the era of me watching it a lot is kind of over now, but I remember it coming out when I was pretty young. I mean, like at the beginning of high school, and just thinking, I have no idea what these guys are talking about, but I want to live in that world. I think so much of my life was formed by wanting to be in a place where you could have conversations like the My Dinner with Andre dinner. And it still completely holds up. It was just so delightful to hear it even playing in the background. So even if you did see My Dinner with Andre back in the day, I would recommend watching it again. Even just hearing those fragments made me want to watch it again. There's never been another movie like it.
Dana, how confident are you that that isn't the single most cunning act of marital passive aggression in the world? Does that movie suspiciously tend to come on when you have to watch a junk TV show all the way to the bitter end? All of a sudden you hear the Gymno Payday closing credits come on.
That's right. Oh my God, as he's riding home to his girlfriend, Deborah Eisenberg. Oh my God, it's too good. Yeah. Basically, he was just trying to rub salt into the wound. Like, I guess you got a job where you got to watch trash sometimes, but not
that's
me.
That's like the Himalayan pink of salt in the wounds too. It's like I'm going to make this sting count. All right, Dan, what do you got?
I'm endorsing Looking at Picture Books, which is a Substack newsletter by Mac Barnett and John Klassen. I have been working on a project about picture books for like 6 months now. Me and Rebecca Onion are doing it for Slate. And that, about 6 months ago, led me to this great weekly newsletter from these two guys who are both big stars in the picture book world. Dana, your husband's world. They write bestsellers. Klassen's won a Caldecott. Barnett is the current Library of Congress ambassador for young people's literature. Anyway, you certainly know some of their books. The newsletter is picture book criticism, mostly of older picture books. And they're all written in DM form. It's Mac and John bantering with each other, and recommending books, taking deep dives into like Goodnight Moon or Go Dog Go, talking about their own work a little. It's very smart and it's very funny. And it's a great way to expand how you think about children's literature as a reader or an admirer. And the most recent edition really blew me away. It is this totally mind-expanding exploration of Frog and Toad, which they both agree is sort of their platonic ideal of a picture book. And just as a work of criticism, It does everything I want a work of criticism to do. This conversation gives me insight into the work, into Frog and Toad. It gives me insight into how Frog and Toad fits into the entire universe of the picture book medium. And it also gives me insight into the critics themselves and what they love and what they struggle with. Anyways, I highly recommend this newsletter for anyone who loves picture books or who just loves smart writing about art.
Dan, this is amazing. I just subscribed while you were talking, and I clicked through that Arnold Lobel interview, which I can't wait to read, the author and illustrator of Frog and Toad. This is so juicy, and if my man does not already know about this, I get to show it, although he doesn't deserve it after my dinner with Andre torture. But I'd love to introduce this to him if he doesn't know it.
You are cruel to me, but I'm kind to you.
There's
when you go low, I go high.
Right. Exactly the ultimate passive-aggressive jujitsu move. Yeah. My magnanimity in the face of your pettiness. So first, can I get an amen? Straight Line was a lie, is a lie by the Beths. Dan, just fucking fantastic record.
Great record. Great record.
Great band, great record. They were on the ascent, a lot of pressure probably to grow and produce something even, to sort of bump them to the next level. They'd moved labels, they did it. I think it's just a tremendously good pop rock album. Straight Line is a lie by the Beths, but that's not my endorsement. And actually my endorsement takes us on a tiny little journey, which begins with me finally reading 2666 and being kind of mind and self obliterated by its genius, and not sure that I loved it, but firmly believing that whether I loved it or not was irrelevant to the kind of weird, austere majesty of it, nor my gratitude for having experienced that. And then I read Spy Who Came In From the Cold, which is like a little Carré novel, which is unlike 2666, which is like a doorstop, right? A fucking plinth. This Spy Who Came From the Cold is like tight, taut, genre-driven. And all it did was deepen my sense of existential dread. It's like in its way as self and mind obliterating and mood obliterating as 2666. It's a really fucking dark novel and highly recommended, but I needed something that was like a clear change of pace from those two. And a friend of mine put me onto these novels. Either one of you familiar at all with the American, I think Swiss American actually, writer Donna Leon and her genre novels, their detective novels that take place in Venice. He's a Venetian detective named Guido Brunetti. And the truth is, it's perfect if it works, right? She's written like 30, I believe, or close to 30 of them. I've started one on the very, very strong recommendation, not just of an individual whose taste I respect, but his entire family, made up of generations, reads these and quite loves them. And also, Donna Leon, for an American who's writing about Venice, did something quite dignified. She's refused, even though they've been translated into dozens of languages, she's refused to have them translated into Italian, in part because I think she thinks it's maybe slightly inappropriate for her to have appropriated this, ancient city, kind of kingdom unto itself.
Not only dignified, but cannily self-protective.
You could argue that. Yeah, that is true. Are you familiar with her at all?
No, I don't know her at all, but I am eager. I always want a good new mystery series.
And the reason I give her I completely see where you're coming from, but I give her the benefit of the doubt on this because I've read the first 20 or 30 pages of the one that a friend of mine handed to me, and they're totally unexpected, right? First of all, she's a beautiful writer, maybe not because they aren't literary books, but she really is, for someone who's not working in a literary vein, she is a beautiful writer, like incredibly deft scene setting, economical, and yet really suggests a world and fully realized human beings immediately. There's no flatness, there's no thinness whatsoever. And secondly, you immediately sense that you're in the presence of a humane sensibility. And in fact, the opening set piece of the one that I read is in contrast to every genre detective book I've ever read. It's about discovering that one of their colleagues on the Venetian, in a very roundabout way on their Venetian force, is gay. And it is handled with such incredible deftness and dignity. And it's all about, a highly patriarchal, still in some ways, culture, especially as magnified by being police, and how they're going to incorporate this fact into their existence. There's no mystery has started yet. In fact, the entire book begins with him deciding he has to cull his bookshelf space. And so he's going to get rid of Proust. And it's a moment of acceptance. He's never going to fucking read Remembrances of Things Past. It's just handled so well. And it's disorienting, right? Because it's like he's not like a tormented alcoholic with a sexual scar, that goes 3 feet deep. And I mean, he's just, none of the cliches really apply. His marriage is depicted as one of like mutual respect and dialogue in ways that are entirely believable. And I'm so 25, 30 pages in, I like now want it to turn into a detective novel, and I suspect it will, but the setup has been wonderful. So this is sort of in keeping with both 2666 and Spy Who Came in the Cold. It's like I'm sort of throwing it out there, having read very little of it, that I'm completely taken with what I've read so far. I'm just curious if our listeners have experienced Donna Leon's books and the Guido Brunetti novels and what they think of them. I'm going to stick with it no matter what, but it'd just be interesting to enter into some kind of a email dialogue with people who, didn't stick with them for whatever reason, or who did and found it rewarding, on and on to like a couple dozen offerings.
There's like the two paths of the mystery novel, or of the mystery detective, right? There's the like tortured, alcoholic or otherwise, the one overcoming his or her personal demons but nevertheless seeing the truth within the mystery. But then there's like a long and fun tradition of the totally well-adjusted, just smarter than everyone else, perfectly well put together, very nice, civilized detective, which I also really enjoy. And I mean, in speaking of Italian detectives, that's like the Inspector Montalbano tradition, Andrea Camilleri, who wrote, probably 30 or 40 great mystery novels with his Italian detective, who similarly is like, he's just got a very nice house and all his colleagues like him, and his housekeeper thinks he's great.
That's intriguing. I want to follow up on those too. All right. Well, guys, that was a fun show. Dana, thank you so much.
A pleasure.
Dan, thanks for sitting in. It is always an absolute delight to talk with you.
Always a joy.
You will find links to some of the things we talked about today at our show page. That's slate.com/culturefest. And you can email us at culturefest@slate.com. Our introductory music is by the composer Nicholas Bertel. Our production assistant is Daniel Hirsch. Our producer is Benjamin Frisch. For Dan Coyce and Dana Stevens, I'm Stephen Metcalf. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you soon.
This episode is brought to you by Saks Fifth Avenue. Saks Fifth Avenue makes it easy to get creative with your personal style and find the best arrivals for fall. So I went to Saks.com for an accessory that I'm always in the mood to shop for, sunglasses. I love stylish sunglasses, particularly the classic kind of Jackie O-shaped, the big, like slightly oval, dark glasses. And it's a little luxury that, I can afford even when I'm trying not to shop. So I looked at some of the sunglasses on offer at Saks, and they've got all kinds of shapes, not only my favorite Jackie O's, but all kinds of fun cat eye shapes and different designer sunglasses. And just looking at them has been an inspiration for what sunglasses to pair with what outfits. But that's just my experience with Saks.com. There's so much more to explore based on your personal style and what you're looking for. So this fall, whether you're trying out the latest fashion trends or curating a closet that stands the test of time, Saks has you covered. If you want shopping to be fun and easy, then head to Saks Fifth Avenue for inspiring ways to elevate your personal style every day.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.